So, Radhe Radhe everyone. Good morning, good evening. Welcome to Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita session. Over to you, Nitinji. I think, yeah, it's 9.
Okay, thank you, Sandhya, and thank you, Brana ji and Veena ji, for a wonderful bhajan singing session and a beautiful bhajan as well, like always. So, with that, a very warm welcome to all of you to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Hope you're having a wonderful start to your day or had a wonderful day based on where you're joining us from. So, very warm welcome. Let's get started with our opening prayers like we always do. Give me a sec. I'm going to share my screen and then we will get started. All right, we'll start with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening everyone. So let's get started with today's session. We are going to start with our Soul Soup segment, where we are talking about building habits, right? Habits. And yesterday we spoke about the different kind of happiness that we get, Shreyas and Prayas. Long term, sweet in beginning, better in long run, better in beginning, sweet in long run. So let's continue on that discussion. And today we are going to introduce a framework on how do we pick up a new habit, good habits. How do we build a good habit? Or how do we, and then in the same series, we will also talk about how to break a bad habit. What is the framework that we can employ? So let's get started. How to build good habits. Like anything, we do some analysis. There's an analytical approach to it. There's a framework for everything. Like in engineering, they tell you that. So, and that is the approach we'll continue to take here as well. So here is what we are going to look at. You look at pros and cons, what works, what doesn't work. So within that, you look at what is the happiness you're going to gain when you build this habit. You need to contemplate on that. What is the happiness you will get out of building that habit? Let's say you decide to do 30 minutes of exercise. That's a habit you are trying to build. So you think about the happiness and you think about the pain. Pain what when you don't do it? Then what else? You think about the advantage and disadvantage of picking up that habit. These are the broader macro level guidelines around it. And then you think about benefits and the harmful effects. Benefits if you do it, harmful effects if you don't do it. Now, this is more at a macro level, a broader guideline. Let's break it down just so that we can illustrate this concept a little more clearly with regards to if you're truly trying to build a habit of doing exercise for 30 minutes a day. This is something you can employ. You can have your own checklist and apply this framework to convince yourself and to keep reminding yourself as to why you need to do that. So you need to, of course, the habit, let's take case in point, exercise 30 minutes daily, and you need to look at the pros and cons, which one weighs higher, right? So happiness and pain, let's understand this. Now, improved well-being, you're going to enjoy that. Okay, let's introduce all of them in one shot. Continued youthfulness, anything that you don't like here, and improved well-being, we all like. It's an aspiration we have. Continued youthfulness, everybody wants to stay young or at least look young for as long as they possibly can. More mental energy, reduced bad cholesterol, healthy heart, more appealing personality, greater stamina for work. These are all the benefits. This is the happiness you get if you build this habit. How about the pain? Unhealthy body, lethargy, weak self-image, weight gain, and then you will be forced to buy new clothes. Okay, that should not be an incentive because you can't fit in the older clothes. Lack of self-confidence, lack of willpower, earlier onset of old age, increased blood sugar and diabetes. So this is, I hope you got the framework right. So you can make a list for yourself, keep revising it. Why am I trying to build this new habit? And when you continue to contemplate, mull over it, then eventually it'll become a common sense thing. I need to do it because there are a lot of gains out of it. I'm willing to take austerity or pain in short run because, of course, doing exercise takes a bit of a willpower and you have to shake yourself out of your comfort zone. You may have to give up that tea or maybe that sleep that you so dearly love at around that time, or whatever the case may be, some kind of a sacrifice to begin with until it becomes second nature. But this is a good framework to employ. What am I going to gain? What am I going to lose if I don't do it? And this should help you build that new habit that you always wanted to build. Okay, so this is a kind of a framework. Similarly, we can employ the same framework to how to break a bad habit, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay, hope this helps. Now let's get to the shloka of our discussion today. I'm going to recite it and we'll pick up 3 hands to take the discussion forward. Na prihasye priyam prapya नो द्विजेत् प्राप्य च प्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः. Okay, let's take a few
Radhe
hands.
Radhe Aparna ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Aparna ji.
Radhe Radhe everyone. न प्रहृष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नो द्विजेत् प्राप्य च प्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः. Thank you.
Very nice, thank you.
Radhe Radhe Riya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Riya ji.
राधे राधे न प्रहृष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नो द्विजेत् प्राप्य च प्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः.
Very nice, thank you. Riya ji. Go ahead, Sandhya.
न प्ररिष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नो द्विजेत् प्राप्य च प्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः.
Very nice, thank you. So let's get started. Okay, after this framework, we are going to start with our shloka discussion. So in this one, we are going to focus on Brahmavid, that word that Lord Krishna is talking about in the shloka here. So what Lord Krishna is saying, established in God, having a firm understanding of divine knowledge. That is the Brahmavid. And not hampered by delusion, they neither rejoice in getting something pleasant nor grieve on experiencing the unpleasant. Now let's look at this concept. Let's go a little deeper. We'll do a quick recap. Okay, by the way, there's something I came across today, thought it's worth sharing. So do we judge people, looking at that? It's not a good thing because every saint has a past, every sinner has a future, right? So we don't know who's sitting on a lot of good deeds and it's just a fraction of what the sins they have committed or the other way around as well, right? So I found it pretty interesting. And also spirituality is all about reading yourself and not other people. So this is something I can think about. I like these pictures. Thought I'll bring it to the session as well. Now let's move on. So yesterday we spoke about, the practice in Buddhism, Vipassana. That is the tradition of meditation in Buddhism. And we said that you could reach it's a process of self-purification by introspection. You simply sit there. It's also called body scanning. And meditators, they they are able to penetrate the deepest level of their unconscious mind by simply going inwards in those meditative states, sitting in isolation, and eradicate the complexes which are lying there. So it's a practice that is done in Buddhism, and they have to do it on their own. Nobody else can do it for them. And there's a rigorous training. You need to undertake a lot of austerity, sit in, and some of the advanced courses, one of my friends, he goes to that. They just sit in isolation for an extended period of time, but it's a bit of a rigorous practice that you do in that. And that the idea is, the end goal is to leading to equanimity and destruction of self-will around it. However, similar outcomes you can achieve, when you simply engage in devotion to God and you start aligning your will to God's will, to the will of divine. And as per 5.17 as well, when we unite our will to the will of God, then pleasure and pain, they are serenely accepted as His grace with the prasad buddhi. And the other benefit is, now if you look at the scale tilts in this favor, because now you're tapping into God and Guru's grace to reach the same state, as opposed to going solo on this journey. So you're tapping into that grace as well. Yes, Tejas, you had a question?
Radhe Radhe Tejas, please go on.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. I had a question about Vipassana. Is Vipassana same as being in Samadhi? Because even Samadhi is also intense, like you're meditating, and that's also kind of rigorous, right? So I was just wondering if it's the same thing.
Not a samadhi, you're already united, right, in that particular consciousness. So samadhi is a state, it's an end state. Right? The samadhis also have different, like one is called nirvikalpa samadhi, where your thought process itself merges. Right? In bhakti, you do savikalpa samadhi. So samadhi is that end state. Vipassana is
Okay.
a stepping stone to that
Oh,
stage.
okay, perfect.
It's a
Thanks.
practice, yeah. All right. So the point here is, in bhakti, you are tapping into God and Guru's grace. And so the same thing can be achieved through devotion. But the point here is that state of equanimity, when you reach that, that's not related to, equal to God realization. Of course, it's a prerequisite, I would say, to have that final realization, but that doesn't mean. So one is, you do it, you go on your self effort alone, but within that also, I'm not getting into technicalities, you can go only up to a certain stage, right? Even in samadhis, you can go up to a certain stage, not beyond that. But God realization is a much higher thing. It's not just reaching a stage of equanimity, but actually getting beyond the cycle of life and death. And that can happen only when we surrender ourselves to God. Okay, without His grace, it cannot happen, because Prakriti or Maya also has different aspects to it. Like when you are fighting a battle with a boxer, he has a right punch and a left punch. God also has Maya, one right punch and one left punch. I don't know whichever one you want to call right or left, but that right punch and left punch are Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya, respectively. So through Vidya Maya, he does the creation, and Avidya Maya keeps us in ignorance. So you can lift the veil of Avidya Maya through your self-effort, through any other practice that you want to do. But Vidya Maya aspect of Maya can only be overcome by God's grace. You cannot do it through self-effort. When I talk about Avidya Maya, the tamas and rajas gun of Maya you can conquer through your self-effort. But the sattva gun you cannot conquer through your self-effort. In order to conquer sattva, you need God's grace. So why not build those sanskars ground up, right from the word go, when that is something you anyway have to do, regardless of which practice you are doing. So that is the benefit of engaging in devotion or on this path. Now let's move on. Brahmavid. Let's talk about this. This is where we are going to spend majority of our time today. Brahmavid means a person with firm understanding of divine knowledge. Such a person. Now, what can you expect from such a person? Who can be called Brahmavid or situated in that divine knowledge? Now, the first thing is, they know themselves as fragmental portion of God's energy. Right? Pretty technical definition if you look at it. Now, if I would say This challenges the definition from a Gyan Marg, where they say they don't call themselves as a fragmental portion of God's energy. They say we are God, Aham Brahmasmi. So can we say they are not Brahmavid? If I go by this definition, no. That is also not a complete understanding, right? So first, the understanding is we are fragmental portion of God's energy. We are a tiny part of that. We are not Sat Chit Anand. We are Anusat, Anuchit, Anu Anand. We are just a drop in the ocean. We are not the ocean itself. Okay. So this is the first understanding. The second one is does not mistake gross impermanent body for soul. Okay, this is also an understanding. So this is where we get stuck because of avidya maya that we spoke about. We consider ourselves as this body, and that is the cardinal sin or the fundamental mistake we end up making. And considering this impermanent body as the basis of our our own individuality, that this is what defines us, and when we leave this gross body, our existence ceases to exist. So that understanding is born out of ignorance, and this this is a mistake, right? And considering something which is anitya as nitya, which is this gross body, which is made up of panch mahabhut, which is impermanent. It's like a rental we get for a short period of time, and we think that that is what our existence is. So if you go to scientists, they will say this is all there is to be for consciousness, right? All the chemicals, they come together and they create this life. They're not able to explain that. Now, chemistry tells us, if we have read chemistry, I think inorganic chemistry, certain reactions happen, and if you do those reaction in a controlled state, those reactions are reversible. So that means if chemicals can create consciousness, right, then you should be able to under certain conditions or certain constraints, you should be able to replicate or simulate that scenario in a laboratory. Can it happen? It cannot happen. Or if somebody passes away, you should be able to reverse engineer and bring them back to life as well. Is it possible? It's not possible. So they say that science is a study of matter and spirituality is a study of what matters. So the point here is that impermanent things, we cannot attribute it to soul or our existence or the life force. So that goes on in conjunction with that. We have to understand you cannot disregard the existence of soul. You cannot, right? Now, you may say that the concept of soul exists in Oriental philosophies only. That's not the case. I think Schopenhauer, the German philosopher of modern eras, he said that when he was asked what is West, he said that part of the world which disregards or who is oblivious to the concept of soul. So Oriental philosophies talk about it. In fact, even in Bible, it is said that who's that the James the Baptist came back as Elijah the prophet. So it has spoken about it in all the traditions. And 65%, I think there was a study carried out in 51, I forgot that journal, where they say 65% of Americans, they believe in afterlife. And there's a doctor called Brian Weiss, right? Many Lives, Many Master. He has actually written a book based on the whole studies based on this. And how did he start doing that? He was actually operating in an operation theater where they were trying to revive somebody who had a cardiac arrest. So that lady, she saw herself, walk out of her body to the edge of a room. And she was seeing herself and hearing the murmurs of people, they are talking and operating on her. And when she was finally revived, she told that she could see everybody, and people said, the doctors, and they all said, no, it's all hallucination that was created because the blood supply was cut to your brain. Until she told an incident that I actually saw a pen roll over from the pocket of one of the surgeons to this side where I was situated in the room. And that person confirmed that it actually happened, that incident happened. So then Dr. Wise, anyway, you can go and check it out if you need to. He has written on, Many Lives, Many Master, and he would treat, and his daughter also carried on from where he left. I think she also does something similar to treat patients, taking them to their previous lives. So the concept of soul is not just limited to Oriental philosophy. All the traditions have spoken about it. It's a different matter that, whatever was stated in earlier testaments was revised over time. But there is a mention of that. And then there are tons of literature available on ND if you go about it. Few people get that ND, near-death experience, and they get to see, the out-of-body experience. And that makes them understand we are much deeper than this body. So the concept of soul, a Brahmavid person is always situated in that knowledge that I am a soul, not this body. So what will happen is that whatever decisions they would make in their life, right? Every situation, circumstance, incident, or whatever we encounter in our life is actually giving us a decision point or a forking point. Are we doing it for the sake of our body, or are we doing it for the sake of our soul? And somebody who's situated in that understanding that I am a soul will always choose the latter, not the former, knowing that they are soul. So that is what differentiates. We also understand that, but not so much in, completely accepting that, and we keep on forgetting and stuff like that. But a Brahmavid person will always be situated in that knowledge, and their decision making would be influenced or dictated by this understanding all the times. Okay, what else is there? Knows three aspects of God: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. Right? So they do understand the philosophy behind it and not get confused that, okay, this is God, this is not God, or this only is God. They understand that God is all pervading, He's locally situated, He's all pervading, locally situated, and at the same time has an ability to take on an avatar as Bhagwan in his full glory. So the tattva or the entity is they understand that aspect as opposed to getting confused, and that is why they are able to see divinity all around. What else is there? Now they know soul's constitutional position to that of servitude. Now, because if you align by the first principle, if you are fragmental part of God, then our constitutional position is automatically there to serve God. Because the fragmental part has to serve the whole. In our company, we are part of the company. So we have to serve the company. If you are part of the community, you have to serve the community. Similarly, if you are part of God, we have to serve the God. And when we talk about Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan, so they understand that sun is like a sun, right? So sun rays, the disk of the sun and the core of the sun, they are all sun, figuratively. But at the same time, the temperature of sunlight and the quality of sunlight or the heat and the temperature, that would vary depending upon whether it's a sun ray or you're at the disk of the sun or at the core of the sun. So that difference is clear to them. And they also understand the constitutional position is that of of servitude as opposed to being an enjoyer. And just because the fact that they're the fragmental parts of God. Yes, Sandhya, you had a question?
Maybe you are getting to it, but is Brahmavid equal to Brahmanisht?
Brahmavid equal to Brahmanisht. Brahmavid, yeah, they are situated in perfect knowledge. So if somebody has become God realized, going by that definition, they become like God. And if somebody has become like God, that means they have all the knowledge. And if they have all the knowledge, that means they are Brahmanisht.
So, yeah. So they are both God realized equal, right?
When you realize God, you become like God, right? Now, the key point here, the last one, is it's a pretty interesting one. It says that the soul can never become equal to God, even after God realization. You can become like God, but not God. We spoke about this concept that when you become like God, God still keeps certain things to himself. The bookkeeping admin activities, he doesn't want to burden you or task you with that monotonous, boring job. And the Paramatma, just logging the karma, what are you going to gain about it? It's all dirty thoughts anyways people have. So why would you want to maintain that ledger throughout the day? So God says, all right, I'll keep it. So we don't become God. It's like when you used to do it like kids. You mix oil with water, keep shaking it as best as you can. Still, oil and water will be separate. Oil drops, they retain their identity. Same thing happens even after God realization. Although we have, become like God and God has given pretty much everything that He has to offer to us, we still retain our identity. That is the concept that needs to be understood. Yes, Shilpa, you had a question?
Radhe Radhe Shilpa ji, please go ahead.
Radhe 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 Nitinji sir.
Radhe.
I was thinking of these concepts actually last week, and I think I confused myself. Can you discuss the relationship between, the dash that says the bullet that says knows three aspects of God, so Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan, and then the bullet right after that says knows soul's constitutional position to that of God, which is servitude. So God is in the three tattvas, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagwan, and all three of them have Satchit Anand. So what is that in relation to the soul? Does that mean the soul is in servitude to all three of those tattvas?
Okay.
What
So
that I'm kind of trying to think, especially because we talked about Paramatma being in animate and inanimate objects. So where does soul come in if it's a servant?
true. So yeah, it's a good question you asked. Let me think of, see, when you realize God as Brahman, you will Satchit, right? Satchitanand, God is Satchitanand, right? So you get the
Yeah.
eternity part of it. Okay,
Yes.
eternity, Sat part of it.
Okay.
When you get when you realize God as Paramatma, you get eternity plus knowledge.
Okay.
Okay, and but that is added. I mean, of course, Satchitanand is all three of them, and they said that the true bliss, it's not that you don't have the bliss. And then when you do it as Bhagwan, the bliss is also added, the true bliss. Not that in other two you don't have bliss, you have. But then that is how it has been explained to illustrate the point that you get true bliss only when you worship him as Bhagwan. So how will you worship God basically, right? End of the day, you talk about how do we serve God. Now, you could serve God in that conception that, some people call nature as God. They serve nature as well. If you look at some of the Greeks and earlier civilizations, Pygmalion and all, they would consider nature as God at that point. So the point is, our nature, our attitude should be to serve as opposed to hoard. Now, if you're doing it with a broader understanding that you are serving God, you are aligning to that purpose. Having said that, the Sagun Sakar Bhakti is the highest. So when you worship God in his form, complete form, that is when you will end up achieving the highest bliss. Now, I think I don't know, maybe I'm rambling and not truly targeting your question here. You are saying, how do we serve God, right? That is what you're trying to say here.
How does the soul in Paramatma, there are things that also have soul.
Mm-hmm.
We as humans, we can serve Bhagwan in Sarvgun Sakar, but we as humans, how do we serve God in Paramatma?
No, you
Because
don't have to. Sagun Sakar, not necessarily. See, God will not come in front of you where you can practice your devotion, right? So serving God actually means trying to unite to his will. Again, goes back to the principle of surrender. So when we do that, even the skills that we have, right? As humans, we have been endowed with certain skills, certain abilities and capabilities that we have, right? When we stop enjoying it for ourselves, which is more of a bhog, and start utilizing it for the sake of God, which means doing the best that we do and accept the results around it. Then you are serving God. You're trying to align your will to God only, right? Serving God basically means end of the day, whatever you have to offer, you do it with the consciousness of a spirit of sacrifice or a yajna or a yoga, as opposed to thinking this is for my enjoyment. That itself is service to God. It's a mental tweak you have to make, nothing more than that. Right, so when you make that mental tweak in your head that whatever you are doing is for the pleasure of God, and I'm not the enjoyer, and I don't need to ride the emotions of success, and that itself is a service to God. God is not asking you to give up your life and put all your money in a particular temple or anything of that. So he said start tweaking your consciousness. That is service to God, because that spirit you are building. Actual service would happen, nitya seva, actual seva will be given to us when we become God realized. But the spirit of seva is what we can inculcate as human beings while we are still work in progress. See what I'm saying? Does it make sense? Or maybe I'm thinking as I speak as well.
Yes, that does make sense. And even if that seva is in the Paramatma form to another soul,
True. With the consciousness that you are
that
serving
it's
and not you are doing it.
right, that through me,
Mhm.
God is doing this. I'm just the means or the vessel, and
True.
I'm serving the Paramatma Tattva of God, or of this other aspect of God.
True. It's like, yeah, my Lord is seated in everybody, if you can think, right? We say it, right? That when you say divinity means you are able to appreciate that Paramatma Tattva is seated within everybody, even the people whom you hate. And if you're
Yes.
able to bring in that sentiment, even in those people, and you are able to serve them with the consciousness that you are end of the day you're serving God, then you're aligning to this principle that we are talking about, right? Attitude of servitude here.
What about the nature? Does nature have soul?
Nature,
If I'm serving or tending to garden with the thought that I want the garden to grow so that I can do puja with the flowers, does the nature have the soul? Because then my soul is serving another soul. And the purpose of both of those souls is to serve God.
So yeah, I mean, these are, I mean, questions, of course, which require a much more nuanced answer, maybe a question for SMX. But the way I understand it is when you are utilizing things for the service of God, like the value of a flower is enhanced when it is actually at the lotus feet of God, as opposed to you putting it on your head and showing it off right around. So when you do things, even the and when you talk about does nature have soul, yes, if you look at from a scriptural standpoint, the animate and inanimate objects are there, sthavar and jangam, right? So there are things like rock. And does rock have soul? No, of course, that tattva is there. Paramatma tattva is there in rock as well. That is why it's able to maintain its solid state. But does it have a soul? It's not living, right? It's not sentient. So we have insentient object as well, and insentient objects do not have a soul. Paramatma tattva is there as well. And that is why people who are in that consciousness, they will not even bang a door. They understand God is seated everywhere. They are very respectful about everything. They'll not scream. Even the door, they will do it quietly. When they wake up in the morning, the first thing that is bow down to the earth, who's giving you the basis to stand and walk throughout the day without complaining. So they carry that consciousness. But to your direct question, answer to your question, inanimate objects do not have soul. But then God has an ability to give them soul as well if need be, right? And to make them sentient in some other lifetime. Who knows? That I don't know, but inanimate objects are very clearly called out. There are animate and there are inanimate. There is Thur, there is Jangam. Maharaj ji has spoken about as well. So those have God particle in them, but they are not conscious. They are not sentient. That means they don't have a soul.
But they're still part of Paramatma.
True. Paramatma means everything is a God only, right? We spoke about it's like this whole creation
Yeah,
is like spider,
got it.
creating something, weaving a web, and then eventually taking it inside. So every animate and inanimate object is permeated by God.
Got it. Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you
Yeah,
very
it's
much.
permeated by God. Yeah. So Karam Yoga is where we build that consciousness. As humans, we have to carry out our job. We have to interact with people. We have our social responsibilities, professional responsibilities. So Swami Vivekananda had also said there is no work which is secular. Everything can be devotional. So the same work you can make it devotional when you do it with the spirit that I'm going to bring in my A game every day to everything that I do for the pleasure of God. They say that God, the unique talents that are given to us is God's gift to us, and what we do with those talents, harnessing those talents, realizing those talents, and doing something for God, back to God, is our gift back to Him. So everything that we do with the spirit of serving becomes devotional at that point, and that aligns with this principle of the spirit of servitude, because we are fragmentary parts of God. And if you think about nature, everything is serving, right? Trees that give oxygen so that we can breathe. They take in, absorb carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and then give back oxygen. Earthworms, even when they die, they make the soil fertile. Clouds and air is carrying all the moisture around to parts of the earth where it needs rain. So everything in this universe is designed in a way so that it serves the other. It's only us as humans who start hoarding things and start accruing karma, because we think we have that mindset of scarcity and start hoarding things because of our insecurities and conditioning that we have. But if you think about nature, everything is giving away. And the principle is that when you are situated in that understanding that we are the servants of God, the universe says that the trick secret, which is counterintuitive, is it's in giving that you shall receive. And this is how it works. So he says you give, 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 and you'll receive, receive, receive as well. Okay, yes, Abhinav, you had a question too.
Radhe Radhe, Abhinav ji.
Radha Radha, Sanjay, Radha Radha, Nitin. So, I just want to add a statement, on Shilpa ji. So, the statement what she gave was like, me being one soul, I can take flower and serve God. So, as both are living beings, the difference between human beings and plants is just like they don't have senses in it. But I think if we look at the very lower level, we both have cells. Like it breaks down to that nuclear. I don't know the small atoms. So all living beings are, I think, made of that. And I think considering plant is also a soul. I mean, it can be considered. I mean, I guess so.
The plant
The
is a soul. Plant is a life.
a soul.
Trees have life. We know that.
Right.
Yeah, they are sentient beings, right? So they respond. There's Climadomonas, you touch it and it will contract. They respond to stimuli also. In fact, there have been experiments carried out in Japan. If you say hateful words to plants, they will, become shrunk. And if you say, treat them with love and care, then they will blossom. So they have life. So in this particular case, both have souls.
Yeah, just wanted to reiterate that. I mean, that's one very amazing statement, the way she has put it out. So yeah, thank you.
And then just to add your question also, this is an interesting point you brought in. Right now, water does not have soul, although it has God's energy in it. And I think there was an experiment carried out where the water was exposed to, I think, some mantra or some chanting, and all the molecules they aligned in one direction. So even Jangham things, Thur things also respond to, because God particle is there, right, in everything. And it was a pretty interesting. They said when they looked at the combination of the cubes that were formed, everything was perfectly aligned from under the microscope when they looked at it, which is pretty interesting. In Japan, they've carried out these kind of experiments too. But yeah, there are inanimate objects that do not have soul, and at the same time, you have animate objects which do have soul. But then, are you doing it? That is why it is said that no act in this world is bereft of sin. When you are cutting crops, like non-vegetarians sometimes give this argument, you're also cutting life, like plants, you're consuming them. So that is why that God has said that no activity in this world is bereft of sin. And it is always a good idea to offer a prayer to neutralize that sin. Otherwise, you are verily eating sin. This is Bhagavad Gita shloka only. Brahmarpanam. Right? So he says that otherwise you are verily eating sin, because of course you have cut in a life and you are consuming that life. But that is created for your sustenance only. But have a sense of gratitude before you consume it. That will absolve you from that sin. That is why our scriptures talk about that as well, because plants also have life. Good discussion. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I mean, actually, so, another way of looking at it is inanimate objects are nothing but Maya, which is also an energy of God. So it has to be uh, permeated by God because it is His energy only, right? And
You look at it, how powerful it is. You've got inanimate thing, and through inanimate thing you create, you extract silica, then you make chips, and then you put it in good gadgets, and or make steel, and you make a good car, and then we get attached to that car, we get attached to the house made up of bricks. Maya is also powerful. God's energy is there in it, and we get attached to house, mansions, cars, gadgets. We know that, right? It's all Maya.
And just to add to that, so by that logic, whatever we do, we are constitutionally serving God only, right? In any form, whatever we interact with. The only thing is the consciousness matters. But knowingly or non-knowingly, we are serving God only. So that's why this statement that the soul's constitutional position is to serve, that applies to all the three forms of God. Like,
Knowingly or unknowingly, we are serving God. So God is saying just tweak the consciousness. Anyway, if you're not serving God in your consciousness, you are serving his lower energy Maya.
exactly, yeah.
Right? So even when a person gets a bonus, let's say a salaried employee, he gets a bonus, he's happy because now he's going to take his family out for dinner today. Right? So his attachment is there. And then it's the same kind of devotee things. Okay, now then I can have earned more. I'm going to give a bhog or do something, for God. So that consciousness they're always carrying. Even material people carry that. That is limited to their own bubble. God says expand it now, and that's when you'll get more. So that is the whole idea here. Because that spirit, that tweak in consciousness will bring you, first of all, it will not be binding, the karma will not be binding, and then it will get you closer to the peace, bliss, happiness, joy that you have always been seeking.
Also, there
So,
was a question. Sorry.
so the
The-
last statement sums it up. It says, divine knowledge brings the understanding that our self-interest lies in giving pleasure to God. He is the supreme enjoyer. So when you give pleasure to God, you will automatically get whatever you have been seeking. It's like hand serving the stomach and automatically getting the nourishment in return. It is like watering the root, and leaves, twigs, fruit, everything will automatically get what it needs. So this is the principle. You serve the root, you'll automatically get what you need. But if we try to hoard it for ourselves, that's when we end up doing binding karmas and all the complications start happening. Yes, you wanted to add something more on that?
There was a question in the chat regarding the total number of souls that exist. So,
What is the reference, I would say, first of all? Are you
no,
thinking of
so
Prithvilok?
nahi, I mean, overall, total, it's an energy of God, right? That I think, as far as I understand, it is finite. It's not infinite, but I don't think if we have a number to it.
I don't know. What I have heard somewhere is that, first of all, God is infinite. So you add infinite to infinite, it still remain, or you subtract infinite from infinite, it'll still remain infinite. And secondly, he can convert interconvertible, right? Sthavar Jangam, he can make somebody a stone and vice versa as well. So I don't know. It has to be, technically speaking, it has to be some number somewhere. I don't know, but we can ask God when we realize God. So it's a moot point at this point.
But anyways, it is not 8.4 million. That is the number of
No,
forms through
it's a
which
very myopic view of looking at it,
liquid.
because our Brahmand is probably not even a sand particle in the entire beach, if beach were considered to be this entire creation. Okay, so if, like I said, our Brahmand, which we don't know much of, um, even if it is wiped off from Milky Way, the entire Milky Way is wiped off from this creation, it will not even present a rounding of error. That is how insignificant this is. At 100 billion suns, which is 10 to the power 11, right? And then that many galaxies are, Milky Ways are there. That means 10 to the power 22 suns are there. And that is just our universe, which is what science roughly estimates as of today. And then that is a Brahmand of only Chaturmukhi Brahma. Think of universe of a 10-headed Brahma, 50-headed, 100-headed, million-headed, trillion-headed, infinite-headed, right? So we can't even conceive how big that creation is. And this whole thing is only 1/4 of the creation. 3/4 is spiritual abode that we don't even know about. So it is mind-blowing. We can't even think about how many souls and how many things are out there. Okay. So with that said, I can move on. Dhruval, you wanted to present your tools for the day before we can continue. I can talk about a little bit more maybe after you do that, but let's present the practical tools that you wanted to share today before we go any further.
Before that, we have a poll related to last week's tool. So I'll just run that uh, just to see how many people engaged in following or implementing that tool. And
Sure. What is this about?
can you see
Hey,
this?
gift. Yes, I have seen that. Yeah, that looks something
Yeah,
that
Dhruval, you want to?
Radhe Radhe. Yeah, so this is the poll based on the tool that we discussed last week, wherein we try to treat different outcome, whether it's happy or sad, as a gift from God. G being the grace of God, I being illusion, F is finite, and T is temporary. So thank you for participating.
Okay, go ahead. So,
should we just wait a minute and then I
yeah,
can
sure. Let's
present?
give everybody to chance to complete it. It's an interesting poll and an interesting acronym as well.
Um, 42% people have answered. Do we want
Yeah.
to still
Let's
wait?
show the results as well. We'll stop
Okay.
a bit.
I'll end the poll
Sure. I think we've given.
and sharing the results now. Yeah.
Grace of God is the leader. Good.
And temporary also, it seems to be immediate.
Temporary is the second one, and finite and illusion are pretty much, So grace of God is the right way of looking, which is what we spoke about, prasad buddhi, right? All four actually fall into that. But yeah, good, Dhruv. That's the one you had introduced, right? So it's a good one.
Okay, so I think now you can probably proceed with.
Okay. Right. Can I share my screen?
Sure, go ahead, please.
Is it visible?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Radhe Radhe everyone. Thank you for another opportunity to bring you a practical tool based on the teachings of Swamiji and Maharajji. So today we'll talk about 5.20, and it talks about, I think Nitinji has been covering one aspect of it, which is trying to get the divine knowledge. Today we'll talk a little bit about Sakshi Bhav or witness consciousness, which can help us cultivate equanimity of the mind. So Sakshi Bhav, I think there are some links at the end of this to Swamiji's lectures on this. It is one of the primary methods on the path of Gyan Yoga, but Swamiji presents another way that we can all practice this. And he starts with bhakti being the root for this. So with bhakti, what happens is that it becomes easy to realize our own identity, which is that we are the soul. And as Nitin just mentioned, the constitutional position is that we are a servant of God. And the reason this is helpful is that now when we're practicing witness consciousness or Sakshi Bhav, when we start with getting some sort of like an emotional reaction or a thought, or we are feeling like we can think about any kind of outcome, right? The first step that we can start with is uh, to think that we are not the body. Like remember the fact that we are the soul, we are not the body. And that's something that's Swamiji talks about as the first step when it comes to witness consciousness. Once we remember that we are not the body, it becomes a little bit easier to watch this thought without reacting. So the thought is coming by, like, if we think of ourselves as the body, we will almost associate with the thought itself. It might become part of our identity itself. So um, when we remember that we are not the body, it becomes easier to watch it without reacting. And once we're able to watch it without reacting, we can make a more conscious decision to like distance ourselves from this thought. And that helps us. The word that's often used is surf this emotion or surf this thought without actually reacting it. If we go one level above in terms of witness consciousness, again, we remember, but this time we remember something even deeper, that we are not the mind either. We are getting these thoughts, the mind is playing tricks on us, but we are not the mind. We have a mind, but we are not the mind itself. And again, it lets us watch this thought, and instead of blaming our mind for playing tricks, we realize that, okay, this is playing tricks. I will decide that I don't want to adopt this thought. It'll lead to even more distance from the thought. And the third level that is mentioned is that we remember that we're not the intellect either. I think this is the most subtle one. It's very hard to realize this, at least in my personal experience. We can feel about the body and the mind. The intellect is something that is harder to disentangle. And again, it lets you watch the thought without reacting. It makes you realize that even this intellect is an aspect of material energy from God. It's something that is finite as well. It is not the soul. It is not our own identity. And it leads to even further distance from the thought. And then again, like this distance will help us make a conscious decision. Like, do we want to adopt this thought? And I think Swamiji had a really good acronym for this, wherein he says that we are responsible for our emotions, and responsibility means that we have the ability to respond. So that can make us think a little bit about how we want to respond to a different situation or a different kinds of thoughts. And if we want to sort of sum this up and have a way to remember it, we can think of it as constructing a building, right? The foundation has to be laid first. That bhakti is the foundation to this, like, which I didn't know until I started doing research on this. And without the foundation, we cannot actually construct a building. And then once we set the foundation, we need to build one floor at a time, higher and higher levels of witness consciousness. And until we get to a point which is the level of the saint, I think Swamiji mentioned in one of his books about Maharshi Ramana and Maharaji, of course, who had the ability to also do a surgery even without taking anesthesia, and they're still able to dissociate themselves from the pain. I mean, that's obviously a very high level, and Swamiji at least gives us some consolation that we don't have to start at that level. We can slowly build up to that particular level. And yeah, thank you. I think there are some links to Swamiji's videos in here. I would highly recommend it because I think the key takeaway really is that this witness consciousness can, in fact, come as a side effect of bhakti. It's a key tool on the path of knowledge or Gyan Yoga, but with Bhakti Yoga, it's something that comes even more naturally because we realize that we are the soul, which is God's servant. Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Fantastic, Dhruval. I just love the way you have introduced the distance, right? Minimal, more distance, and the way you have put this illustration in visuals, just drives home the point with foundation, floor 1, floor 2, floor 3. So good work, I must say that. So you are raising the bar with every presentation, which is fantastic and phenomenal. So it's always good to see that. And these are the things where, people can take a quick screenshot, keep it for easy and quick reference, some of the foundational or the framework stuff that we are creating, right? The spiritual cash up segment keeps churning out. That's a factory, and now you're adding to that as well. So this is fantastic stuff. This is gold mine. Okay, so keep up the good work. Let's hear from someone. Fill out the feedback tracker as well if you have any feedback on the excellent presentation that Dhruval gave, or even otherwise. So let's post the feedback tracker as well for everyone. But yeah, let's hear from participants if they have any questions related to this. But great work, Dhruval. Yes,
No question, but again, I also really love this that, the distance is increasing. Very simple, but very effective. And this foundation, I think that's very important, right? Like, if we set the foundation right as we are the servant of God, witness consciousness will become much more easier than just going via the Gyani Marg kind of a attitude. So,
yeah, Sakshi Bhav, witness consciousness, is a great tool, and it is the tool on the marg of Gyan Marg, and it is one of the tools on the marg of Bhakti, but a fantastic tool, so to say, where you can just take a back seat, be a spectator rather than immediately participating in the drama itself. So thank you again, Dhruval, for taking the initiative and putting it up so nicely. It helps us ruminate over this concept, um, even more deeper. So that's very nice. Thank you. Anybody else who has any questions or wanted to chime in?
Rahul ji.
Yes,
Yes,
Rahul.
Rahul.
I'm waiting
Radhe
for
Radhe.
two-liner. Rahul, go ahead.
No two-liner, but Mahesh ji has mentioned in the chat that it is a good tool, but a little bit tough, and it will take effort to reach floor number 3. But that is what we have to do.
Yes.
Abhyas, abhyas, abhyas.
And the floor number 3 is the toughest one to conquer as well. You can tell I'm not the body part of it, but when it comes to your buddhi, the problem happens that your buddhi will not give judgment against itself. Will your buddhi ever tell you that, hey, you're wrong? Never. So that is where when you have to override your buddhi also, that takes a lot of effort. And this Buddhi Devi is the culprit for us to keep on repeating over lifetime after lifetime, even after we have met saints. Why? Because this Buddhi Devi prevents us from completing our surrender. It will say, oh, this all makes sense, but there is one but every lifetime it puts. And that is the biggest impediment to conquer as well, because it will never give judgment against its own self. Maharaj just told that, which hit me really hard. Again, easier said than done. Buddhi is very smart to justify itself. But yeah, this is the what you call the final frontier, so to say, where you can override your intellect. Shri Ramya, and then Mahesh.
Yes, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. It was a very precise thing how it got captured in the presentation, and a very nice poster. I would say that specifically when we are angry, and if this poster is before us, it will help us to disassociate from the situation. So I feel that we should keep it as a poster and make a nice poster out of it, and then spread it out even more. And a good one, very well captured. I'm learning more presentation skills first from Nitinji, then Kashti, now from Dhruji as well. So thank you. Radhe Radhe.
No, they are the presentation experts. I put stuff, that's about it, and talk more. But yeah, this is good stuff for sure. Yes, Maheshi, you wanted to add?
Radhe Radhe Mahesh ji.
Yeah, I was going to say my comment was reaching the floor 3, but I think currently I'm at the foundation level, capability level 0.
That's being humble, but yeah, we all are work in progress. I think it keeps fluctuating. Sometimes we falter on the first, second, third, fourth, but we are playing the game within these floors, including the foundation at this point. But yeah, it's a great framework actually to measure yourself against and then responding as opposed to reacting. In fact, we should talk about some of the success stories. If so some of us are practicing and we have been able to implement it in some situations, and what we felt afterwards. Let's say we had a great reason to be upset and angry on somebody, and we conquered it using this framework. Bring out those stories and say how you felt afterwards, because it's not natural for our mind, right? If you want to bring in those stories, do let me know. We can always talk about that in our sessions, and that's a good way to reinforce these concepts and inspire each other as well. Great. Yes, Rahul.
There's also a question in the chat from Swapan ji.
What's the
Swapan
question?
Kumar Patra ji is asking, thanks for very nice presentation, but is there any further tool to keep distance from the thought?
Further tool other than witness consciousness? See, thought So our mind will generate thoughts, 60,000 thoughts a day. But the key is to know that you are not obligated to serve or energize or to ride every thought. That choice is always with you. We forget that part. It's like when you go to a sea beach, there are so many waves that will come to you, but you don't choose to surf every wave. You have it's well within your rights to reject. Same thing, same practice we have to do. Thoughts will come. Now, do we choose to energize that thought or just kill it then and there only? That choice we have to make. And that choice we can only make when we have a discriminating intellect. And we can only have a discriminating intellect when we have really contemplated upon this knowledge. So if you squash a thought within the first 3 seconds, you have not really energized it. But if you continue to think about it, energize it for more than 13, 15, 20 seconds, that means you are choosing to write that. And that is the only way. That practice, discriminating between what to choose to write and what to kill, we have to get better. And like any other thing in life, it takes practice. And that practice, the reason to do that practice is the knowledge that we are talking about, because every thought is a karma. It's not just a mere innocuous thought. Thought is a karma, provided you are choosing to energize it. If you don't choose to energize it, then it does not leave that impression as a sanskar or as a karma in that case. Hope that answers, but it'll take practice.
Okay.
Yes, I see a couple of hands. Real quick, we can take before we move to our last segment. Yes, Rahul.
Came with 2 lines. So Radhe Radhe Govind Radhe, साक्षी भाव का रहस्य, साक्षी भाव का रहस्य अभ्यास से मन और बुद्धि में बिठा दे. राधे राधे.
वाह, अभ्यास से मन और बुद्धि में बिठा दे. Very nice. Thank you, Rahul, for your beautiful 2-liners. Yes, Samiran.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Samiran.
Radhe Radhe. When it comes to Sakshi Bhav and when we see a person's activity or indulgence and association in day-to-day life, like some people have less friends and everything, but some people are bound to have with their work life, they have lot of association and lot of indulgence with people. So in that sense, I just want to add to the previous question that someone asked, that in yoga there is a concept that basically yoga nidra, right? When we have that yoga nidra concept, we just let the body relax. And also there is also a mind working and intellect is making its decision and everything. So when we practice yoga nidra, that is a very, very like go-to tool to just start off, and for a 15 minute or 10 minutes or whatever, we just let the body relax and just we stay in the state of that relaxation or passing all the thoughts that is coming. I think that will really help everyone to just know that what is Sakshi Bhav and how to observe and the body itself and the mind itself. And also one more thing that I wanted to add, that sorry, I forgot what I was saying, but yeah, that is one of the things that I wanted to bring it up. Yeah.
No worries. So in Manushya Yoni, one should do Yoni Yoga Nidra at least, right? So that is where you observe your thoughts and then you let it settle down. It is also called, I believe, in Prem Yoga, they call it subtle body
Subtle body
relaxation.
relaxation. Even I thought,
Subtle
yeah.
body relaxation. Yeah, it's a good thing. And Swamiji does that as well. And I've seen people snoring left, right, and center when he does. Okay. It can happen. Good point. All right. So with that said, let's move on to
Annapurna ji.
real quick. You can go ahead and then we can do maybe a couple of chants and then wrap up the session for the day. We'll continue on this shloka tomorrow. Probably we'll wrap it up, or maybe because I wanted to introduce a few more concepts and then we'll wrap it up. Yes, Annapurna ji, real quick.
Oh, yes, I just want to say that, if it is a negative thought, because witness conscious, you find out that it is a negative thought. In Power of Thought, Swamiji talks about dilution and subtraction, and then sublimation. You can apply that also. That way, if it persists, you can do that. Most of the time, as you said, that they don't energize it. If at all it happens, this method I think one can follow. So get rid of it.
Very true.
Thank you. Radhe, Radhe.
Best thing is to not to energize it. If we are stuck in that, then that's yes, yeah, dilution, substitution, and sublimation. Swamiji has given that.
Substitution. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, Purnapunaji. Now we'll do a couple of recitations, maybe 2 or 3 hands we'll take, and then wrap up our session for the day. But fill out the feedback tracker if not already, and let's do that. Go ahead, Sandhya.
Yeah. Satya hinsa adi man binu hari bhajan na paay. I think I changed the tune, sorry. I'll try it again. Can someone else go first? Sorry about it. I was doing Kabir Doha tune for some reason. Dinesh, do you want to go first?
Go ahead, Dinesh. Meter is the key. Who sets the meter for the day?
सत्य अहिंसा आदि मन बिनु हरि भजन न पाय राधे राधे जलते द्रुत निकले नहीं कोटि न करिय उपाय राधे राधे जय राधे 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 राधे
Very nice. It's a very beautiful verse. See, one thing is without God's grace, or it is impossible to find happiness in this world. But this one goes on to say, even godly virtues like truth, non-violence, charity, etc., to perfect that, you need devotion to God. This is a very important, very powerful verse in that sense. Okay, let's take 2 more hands and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, just reiterating what Dhruv said, it is the foundation. Devotion is the foundation for
Devotion is the foundation, yeah. Yes, 2 more hands I see. Go ahead.
Yeah, Riya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Satya ahimsa adi man बिनु हरि भजन न पाए राधे राधे जलते घृतनी कले नहीं कोटि न करिय उपाय राधे राधे जय राधे कृष्ण राधे 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 कृष्ण राधे राधे राधे
Shri Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Satya himsa adi mana binu hari bhajan na paaya Radhe Radhe जलते घृत निकले नहीं कोटि न करिय उपाय राधे राधे जय राधे कृष्ण राधे 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 कृष्ण राधे. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiramya. Okay, today we are going to make history by making an exception. Pragi ji, go ahead, please.
Radhe Radhe, Pragi ji.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you.
सत्य अहिंसा आदि मन बिनु हरि भजन न पाए राधे राधे जलते घृत निकले नहीं कोटिन करिए उपाय राधे 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 कृष्ण राधे राधे राधे.
Thank you, Pragiji. Loved your improvised meter. So thank you. It's a beautiful verse. We will talk more about it and we'll continue to discuss this shloka tomorrow. So thank you again for your wonderful engagement and for giving me the 60 minutes of your day like every day. So thank you, everybody. And stay blessed. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and a great rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Radhe Radhe. Good night. Good day.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.